First, let me thank everyone who participated, the audience, everyone on the panels. I think it was a really awesome show of folks here. And I would be remiss if I did not thank Chick and his team, who really brought together this great group of thought leaders and thinkers, and in a way that it helped inspire me. And I think everyone here, just there's so many different conversations happening, and that's what it's all about when we come together. I think it was really interesting to me how every group provided such a different perspective on how to approach creative and technology and what all the different industries are that come into that. So bear with me while I move through this. So this was such a great conference, and I think one of the things we really think about, you'll notice I have no spaces between those words. My colleague Kate asked me to put spaces in there. But I thought this is really appropriate because it's about how all of these things were blurring together. You heard David in the last presentation talk about this blurring on the edges. And I think one of the things that we saw that each of these topics came together in a way that made us all kind of sit up and take notice and think a little bit more about what's next. So I think when you look at this, you think a little bit about, we heard Connor Brady from Sweeper, who talked about how audio really made people rethink what landmines did. We thought about the wearables panel the first day. I don't know if you guys all heard that, but there was such a divergent view on what wearables meant, and I really appreciated that because I think we've heard a number of different perspectives there. The folks from MyFitness and Under Armour showed us how do you take all that data and do something with it. So that's really what does wearable means, what happens with that data. And I think if you think about David's timeline, which I think is very accurate, we're not quite there yet. What's the next thing? And that's up to all of us to kind of help form and shape that with consumers. I love our colleagues from Fake Love, who really told us about what does an experience mean, and then what's a stunt. So how do you kind of differentiate that? When you saw the big AT&T piece, that is a big experience. And really that merging in the AT&T was about merging the physical and digital. So I think there were a lot of places where all of those lines were blurred with technology. And we heard about mobile payments from Adite, and I think there were so many challenges in that, but we all know that that's the next big thing for where consumers are going to be, and we have to meet them there. So I looked at all these things, and I was hearing about this, and the folks from Sapient Nitro, Sheldon from my hometown in Portage, Indiana, which was kind of an odd finding last night. He spoke a little bit about that merger of the whole notion of the creative technologist. That ever-expanding role will become even more important as we merge marketing and technology. So we talked about that. We talked about data. We thought a lot about big data, what that meant to privacy. The thing that came through to me more than anything, what does it all mean? We pushing to that creative edge of how do brands connect with consumers? How do we look more closely at that and that blurring of line? But the one thing that we need to do as a group is really go back to the basics, which I think David spoke about it a little bit. The thing that came through every panel, for every technology that was introduced, what we saw was the human connection. It was all about the human and emotional connection to one another, not the device, not the wearable, not the thing. And that made me pause for a moment and think, well, that's why we're all in this industry, to help brands make connections with consumers. So if we think a little bit about that as the common thread, I think it's really important to think about why does this matter? And I think Dan Fox opened up the entire seminar with saying, let me first acknowledge that we are all competitors. We're all scrapping for the same dollars out there. We're trying to take money, build money, grow money. And the thing that's most important about that is that those edges are blurred about what the competitors are. Many of the greatest projects you saw up here, the AT&T projects, some of the other projects, was all about agencies and other people collaborating with one another, because we all aren't going to have that same expertise. So I like the notion with AT&T, they brought in other agencies. With Hush, there's any number of ways they partnered with brands and other folks to come up with that cross-pollination of ideas. And I think one thing is certain about what I leave here with, and I hope that all of you do, is that we all build really remarkable things and really remarkable experiences. But what do we need to do with that is think a little bit about what David Shire told us this morning about those connections that you have to make. So if we're all competitors, how do you get really great ideas versus your competitors? Sometimes you're going to reach out to those same competitors to get diverse ideas and options to support that. I think also this idea of both thinking big but also thinking small about the water cooler. I don't know if everyone kind of stood up and said, oh, let me have a conversation at the water cooler later, because that micro connection and interaction is going to change how we all think about how to build great ideas. We're going to get a better idea out of me asking, even though I don't really care about football, did you see the game? I mean, not really, but. So I think that was the biggest things. And I think the most important thing that, you know, when we think about this, it was all about the collaboration. Adite brought up this notion of it's the first time that Apple had other logos in one of their announcements. If that is not the biggest nod to what it's going to take to collaborate, to move along that line that David showed us earlier about what's the transition, that collaboration is critical with both competitors and allies within your agency. So I think as we all head back to our office, and I'm trying to make this brief, I think that, you know, I take with me that we have to build out to that edge. We blur the edge and we build out to it, and we partner to do it in ways that we probably at one time thought was unthinkable, but really merging our teams and our ideas and thought process to get there. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I want to let everyone get out of here quickly, and I want to thank Chick and his team again, because I really just think a hats off to, you know, bringing together such a great group of creative technologists.